The Layla Show. Welcome to another week of The Layla Show, where we build a conscious community one conversation at a time. With your host, me, Layla Ziari, coming at you with weekly episodes every Friday featuring guests from all over the world and so many different industries, sharing their stories, experience, tales, laughing, loving, and just vibing out. The Layla Show.
I gotta show you this to start. Check this out. I see that you collect fashion.
I do. I collect vintage clothes. I love that. I love it so much.
I want to tell you about it. It's really fun.
Please do.
Got good stories. So this is a Dries Van Noten. And I don't know if you know of the Belgian designer Dries Van Noten.
No, but I want to.
So he and some of his colleagues from Antwerp, Belgium, crashed a New York wedding show and just brought their own fashion, and they became famous from that. So Dries, Dries Van Noten, and so this is from a friend.
Write that down somewhere.
Dries, Dries, yeah, I'll spell it for you. But Dries Van Noten, Naughtin, and he has the Haute Mode Palais in Antwerp. If you ever You're a traveler.
I am a traveler. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Antwerp is like a mini Amsterdam in that it's got the wild side. It is where diamonds were first faceted and cut.
Really?
A wealthy city. And it's not that far from Brussels. And it is so much fun. There's a red light district.
Obsessed.
I went dancing in a deconsecrated church in the red light district when I lived in Belgium.
Wait, that's my favorite. I don't know why I love red light districts.
Well, and Amsterdam. Anyway, you should check it out. It is very cool.
I absolutely will.
Antwerp is so cool. Yeah. So I got to know Dries Van Noten because I don't know if you noticed this, but I did a Fulbright study. I had the incredible opportunity to do a Fulbright study in Brussels, and I traveled all around Europe. Amazing. The cool thing was I got to bring my family. So my daughters were both stuck into French and Dutch speaking schools for a semester. The older one still speaks French very, very well. The younger one, it was harder because we couldn't put her back into lessons.
Yeah,
but they spoke Dutch and French really well.
That's impressive.
So it was so cool. It was really amazing. And so we were invited at the end of the Fulbright to go to the American Embassy. And we just didn't really have the clothes for that. So we took advantage of being in this really cool, like, fashion center of Europe, slightly less known than Paris, but super cool. And my husband had a very nice athletic physique, and we couldn't find the right clothes. So someone said, you probably would fit in a Dries Van Noten suit. So we went to Antwerp, and we went to the Haute Mode Palais, which is Dutch, and I don't speak Dutch. And we went in and we tried on clothes. And it was just so much fun. And we got this gorgeous suit for him. He wore that. I got another suit from a small woman designer, and it was just fun. And the girls were dressed gorgeously. We got to go to the embassy and have a party with the other Fulbrighters. So
this is my kind of time, I like.
No kidding. I mean, it was so
Fashion
great. And
parties, yes. Europe, everything.
And so I lived in England, and I can tell you more about that later, but I lived in England, and one of my dear friends there collects fashion because she doesn't believe that clothes should continue to be made when there are so many really good.
I agree so much with that. I do not think they should continue to be made, especially the thrift store has all the finds, vintage stores. Yeah. You don't need and I don't know, but I do also support boutique.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's always a growing edge for art, right?
Yeah. But, I want
this was
homemade,
and some people repurpose sweaters, or they darn them in these incredible ways. So this was hanging at my friend Rachel's house on her hanger of many things she was going to post on eBay and sell. And I was like, Dries Van Noten, I love this. It's just so pretty and
so
simple.
Pretty. Yeah,
I had to have it. She just gave it to me. I was very lucky. So
that's me. If anyone comes over my house in a posting frenzy and they're like, I like this, I'm like, fucking have it. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Where do you collect from?
All over. I mean, honestly, everywhere. Like there's no like I thrift. I collect things on eBay too. I know when it's on sale. I know when a sale's too good to not be. So eBay,
Yeah.
Etsy, thrifting. I mean, I also lived in France for a year
Mm.
and a half. So,
Ooh.
and I travel all the time. Like all I do is travel. It seems, even though like this year I've told everyone I'm like, I'm on a hiatus in hermit mode. There's
Okay.
only been 1 month this year that I haven't traveled. So basically I just collect clothes wherever I go.
That's fabulous. And
Yeah.
where did you live in France?
Hmm. Well, Cassis, France. I don't know if you know it. It's in the
You
south.
have to tell me the region. That name is not.
Okay. It's in the south of France. It's like 30 minutes from Marseille.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so I guess Côte d'Azur.
Hmm.
I guess that's technically
That's cool. Oh,
it was a time, yeah. It was a time. I,
yeah.
I I don't know if I'd do it again, but
I have a friend who I hang out with a lot of the poets at UC Berkeley, the undergrads. And one of my friends went to Lyon, which is, Lyon,
yeah.
whatever way you say that in English, in
However,
the South. And it's a really cool city, but she
it
didn't find
is.
it welcoming as she would have wanted. And I was
Mm.
like, oh, I wish you'd gone to Paris, because the adventure in Paris is that maybe you'll fall into French society and make French friends. But if not, you're still in Paris and you're meeting all these really cool people who are in Paris.
Paris is really cool, and I feel like, when I told people I lived in France and they were like, it's the south of France, like everyone was like, what is wrong with you? Like you moved to Paris. And every time I went to Paris, I was like, oh, okay, this like I feel like I would have thrived so much more here
Yeah.
but I was like, I want the Mediterranean. I'm a seacoast baby. I love the ocean, so I was just like, whatever, but it's true.
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
as amazing.
No, I like small town France too, a lot. And to the opportunity to live in southern France, I would totally take it. Did you go see all those like fields of lavender where it's like rows and rows?
I did. It was magnificent. And the opportunity didn't present itself. I created it. I was just like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
goodbye. Goodbye, cruel world. I'm going.
Good for you. That's fabulous. So
Yeah.
you took your work and went abroad.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, actually, I dissolved my entire life and was like, I'm gonna scrap everything and just start again. And that was like, I would not do it like that again because
Right.
it was reckless. It was irresponsible, which like I am a little reckless and irresponsible sometimes in my but it was so beyond myself. Like it was just like I wasn't prepared to like deal with the repercussions of just like throwing everything to the wind and then doing it
Right.
in another country. Because I was like, oh, I've done it in America. Layla,
Right.
that's America. It's
Right.
not the same. Like, of course, you've scrapped your life and moved to a different state, but like doing it in another country is just a whole other ball game. So I was like, oops.
I totally know what you mean, because after I got divorced, my younger daughter moved to England and went to high school there.
Mhm.
And so for her last year of high school in England, I was like, do you want me to come over? And she was like, yeah. And so I moved to England for
Wow.
a full school year with
Okay.
no work permit.
Without the work permit, you're so screwed.
Oh, I brought a really cool consulting gig, which unfortunately they were like, we need you to be proximal. And I'm like, whoa, that's quite a word, right?
That is quite a
I was
word.
working with them on Zoom, and it was 2017, and they were like, we need you nearby. And I was like, I will come back. I'm happy to come back. I have a
Yeah.
boyfriend in San Francisco. And they were like, no, we just want you here. And I was like, oh. So I know that feeling where it's like you're like out at the end of the cliff, right? I would never give up the adventure, especially because that's where I met my muse, was in England.
Ooh, tell me
Really met
about
my
the
muse.
muse. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm a fellow poet too. I don't know.
I saw that. I
So.
did not dig far enough to read. I do want to
I
read
know
your
I
book.
haven't read yours either yet, but like I tell everybody like I suck until I meet you though, honestly. So
I'll read to you if you want. I've
yes,
published
you'll
a
have to read.
set of my poems.
And
Yeah.
also like when I first saw you graffiti poetry, I was like, what does this even mean? Because I've never
Hmm.
heard of this before. I think you invented it.
I think I did.
I think
But
you did.
this is how it happened. So I was moving to England, and I read this article about Ruth Stern, who is an American poet who used to hear poetry coming over the hills of her farm when she was a kid. And she would know that she had to catch that poem. So she would run inside, and then she would stick her pen in the air if she almost missed the poem and write down whatever she got. And when she did that, she would find they were word for word backward. But the power of her muse was incredible. I read this article and I'm like, you gotta be kidding. That's really cool. So when I moved to England and I was on this beach where it was like roaring sea and wind rolling down those cliffs,
like
it was
the Bay
so.
Area.
This is Kent. This is on it, like the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Only more powerful.
Wind.
It's just, yeah, I suppose like Marin, but I'd never experienced. I was like walking on this beach and the wind and the roar of the sea were so much I wasn't hearing my own thoughts.
Oh my God.
And then suddenly I started hearing these lines and I was like, that is not me. I better get some beach chalk, because along the coast there's beach chalk and people graffiti onto these seawalls.
That's so cool. There should be beach chalk at every beach.
No kidding.
What?
I know, but there it is, handy beach chalk. If sometimes I would take such a big chunk that I would stand on it, because the beach was amazing. It would rise and fall according to the winter storms or whatever was going on. So sometimes I was reaching way up and there's like no wall left because the sand had come in. And sometimes the wall was, I would stand on chalk sometimes and I'd write. So I started to write. And the cool thing was they started out kind of feisty. I was really in a phase of shifting after having been married for a very long time. A lot was changing in my life. And my mother had passed away. So like a lot of the bearings in my life had shifted. So they started in this really kind of feisty expression of myself. And then at a certain point, they went really deep and they became instructive. And it has been the most amazing thing. And I have to tell you that the muse also followed me into my apartment, my flat, and said, put the paper up, draw this, use that color. And I started doing like freehand painting. And I launched as an artist at that time. I'd set up a show pretty much before I went. I did these photo collages, which are really fun. And I had a show in LA while I was in England, but the art just, and it's still there for me. So the reason that I'm a graffiti poet is that I didn't just do it in England, but when I got back here, I finally found the quiet in Berkeley up above the Rose Garden. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I haven't.
It's so beautiful.
I mean, I lived in the Bay Area for like 5 years, but I mean, on and off for 10, but I really was just like, I was so marined and Sonoma'd out. Like I was just, so no, I have to go now.
The Rose Garden's really cool. It was built during the 1930s. It's one of those public works projects, and it cuts down a cliff, and it looks out at the whole bay. You can see Marin. I can admire Tamalpais, and I can see the Golden Gate from there. But across the street is a beautiful park. And on the upper edge of the park is one of these public rights-of-way stairways that goes up among redwoods and bay laurels.
I didn't even know there was redwoods in Berkeley.
Oh, we have so many second growth redwoods. So they're not the towering ones you get in the parks, but they're really significant. And so I was just touring around there, tootling around, trying to find my place, right, when I got back. And I went up these stairs and the quiet hit. And suddenly I started to hear the muse again. So I just had like a regular old pen and I just wrote something on a fence that had a little bit of graffiti, paintings, nothing like crass or rough. It was just like a sweet little fence. So I wrote that and then it kept going. I have over 70, probably 80 poems there now. Wow. I have kind of a following. I read to people when I go up, like I repaired a poem for my daughter's birthday that I wrote last year. By redoing the Sharpie over it. So I have this huge set of poems and it's a little bit scarier than in England, because in England I had chalk, and if I needed wet sand to go, whoa, my dyslexia is showing, or that word's not right, occasionally I would do it. But most of the time I just hear the poem and I'm just writing as these lines are coming to me, but I write in Sharpie so that it works on the fence. And so it's like
no room for error with Sharpie.
Exactly. So I have like a collection in this book of a lot of the poems from England and then a bunch of the poems from here. So they look like this. I'm, the visual art part of me does the photographs, right? But it's also the way to preserve them, because in England, they were going to wash off. There were times that the waves were so high, my entire wall was covered in waves. I have a photograph in here, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it on time. No, I won't be able to. But there was this point I went over and it was like, where's my seawall? It was in a winter storm. So
yeah, that's true. That would be washed away. That's so cool though. Just like the concept, because I mean, I've written poetry and blah blah blah, but it's like nobody sees it unless I'm like, putting it on the internet or blah 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 blah, or
yeah,
talking, like to have it on a wall. I mean, I want to walk through anywhere and see poetry on the wall. Like that's what I want everywhere I go. I think that life should have poetry on all the walls. So
I know. I agree absolutely. And I'm developing. So for a while, I self-published this, and I have two more books in me. One is going to be just the British poems. I'm not going to like edit, because I edited out some of the early feisty ones.
Oh no, girl, get the feisty ones. I love feisty.
I'll start with a feisty one when I read you. But then there's a whole book of just the Berkeley poems as well that I want to do. And but I've held off on putting them on social media most of the time, because when you look at traditional publications, if you want to get into a journal, you can't have published that even on social media.
That is very true. Yes.
Yeah. And so that really thwarted me. And I put in my poetry for a few journals. And now I'm in a deciding point where I'm like, I'm probably going to put some poetry up online, up on Instagram.
Yeah.
Because, and the funny thing is, today I was looking at my Instagram, and a woman had walked by my poetry with her 11-year-old son, and she photographed one of the poems and said, it was so wonderful to see the magic of poetry in this place, and you really brought something. So, it's powerful, and people are outing me. People have been photographing and posting my poetry for a while.
Yeah, so they're already doing it. You might as well do it, It's out there.
As well. Yeah.
That is tricky, because I mean, I ran into that too with like when I first published my first book. I was like, oh, I want to try to like get in whatever journals, papers, whatever, and I was like, they're like, no, publish, and I was like, all I really have is this book of 111 poems I just wrote. So I do, but I mean, I sent some in, some were okay with it. Then I just started writing, and then now I have billions of poems on my Google Drive that I like don't really know what to do with. So.
Right, I know. I mean, there should be some interesting collective for poets. One of the things I loved when I was in England was some of the poets found me on the beach, and through my ex-husband, they figured out who I was, and they invited me to a poetry reading. And I didn't really realize how common they are. There are poetry readings here.
Yeah, I didn't either.
But in England, like, you can't move for poetry readings. There's like everywhere you go, little pubs, and I'm still part of this Margaret or Kent Poet Society on Facebook. They just constantly have events, and I'm like, oh, if I could just walk over.
No idea that, that the poetry community is so thriving.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that should be your next launch off into wild adventure. Is like, England is just amazing for that.
I really love that. Yeah. Now that's a reason to go to England, because I don't know. There's so many places. It's so hard to pick. I want to go literally everywhere. And it's like, what is my intention behind whatever I'm doing right now? It's hard to say, because I'm literally all over the place. I wish I wasn't, but it just is who I am. I'm like,
you're creative.
Yeah, that's a reason, because sometimes I'm like, do I want to travel to collect clothes? Well, then I'm probably not, I'm gonna go here. Like, do I want to travel for eating? Do I want to move to France and try to marry a random stranger so that I can get paperwork? Well, I already did that, so we won't be repeating that one, at least. But now we can go to England for poetry. Now I wonder, have you like City Lights, Vesuvio, have you done that in San Francisco? Because that's
what I do is Freight and Salvage in Berkeley. Okay. I read it Freight and Salvage, and then as I mentioned, the UC Berkeley has this poetry club called the Live Poets Society, and I go there on Tuesdays. I just went this week, and we read poetry to each other, and I'm like the only person who's not a student, right? But we've got like a really good rapport. One of them interviewed me for a podcast when they found my poetry, and so then they invited me, and so I read there. And then we're making a plan to go to this other place called the Starry Plough, which is an Irish pub in Berkeley.
I like the name.
I should go to City Lights, but the thing is, it's just such a big trek that I
It
haven't managed.
it is. It's just like that corner of the world is the only place I've ever been in my life where you'll just be walking down the street and someone will pop out of a corner and be like, "Hey, can I read you a poem?" And I'm like, "Whoa, this is like
Oh, oh
mystical,
my gosh. Oh my
magical." And then like, I used to like, I mean, I lived in Marin, so I was never in the city, but if I did go, I would go to like Vesuvio's. And I mean,
okay.
I'm not ashamed to say that there were some 11 a.m. Bloody Mary drink days, and every time I would meet some poet in the bar. I had like kidnapped this guy who I'm still friends with, like one of the only male friends in my life. I was like, "You want to come?" He was like, "I live on a boat. I'm translating a book of Italian poetry." I was like, "You want to come like stay at my house for a week and we can just write together?" It was like,
Oh,
great,
fun.
awesome. So I don't know. That's just like my mystical, magical Bay Area corner of the world. Like I didn't really get into
Wow.
like I
I'm
didn't
gonna
go
go.
to readings per se, but I did meet like so many poets, and I was just like, wow,
Okay.
we are out here.
Vesuvios and City Lights. I
Yeah,
have
just
to
like
go.
that little, yeah, because it's like, and then there's a place, Specs, which is right across the street from Vesuvio's. It's like the secret cool kids hangout.
Ooh, check. Okay, I'm gonna have to write this on red pen. I don't have any paper here.
Sorry, Specs, to blow you up now. Now I said it on the internet.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun. I love doing that. I mean, I felt so shy when I was first asked to read my poetry in English because it's like it's one thing to put it up on the wall, right? But then
Right.
when someone asked me to read it, and most of my poetry is really about deep healing in myself and really challenging issues. So of course, there I was getting choked up in the middle of every poem, and I was like, oh, I felt really embarrassed because these poets were so good and they worked their words and they worked their words and
God, I hear people
everything was
reading
just
this
precise.
phenomenal.
But
Yeah.
they didn't mind. They were like, "It's cool that it's so emotive for you," and I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Well, I
Just
feel like it's not like it's supposed to, because I don't want to shout out the words like supposed to, because nothing is supposed to. But I mean, at least for me, like poetry is very healing. It's like I write other things too, but I feel like the deep, like I
mm-hmm.
always find so much like solace or like get out all these things that have been on my subconscious mind or like just go
Mm-hmm.
down the rabbit hole of like the deepest thoughts that I literally will suppress and say, fuck
Oh,
off, go in that corner. So I think writing should be very emotive. Not should, I can't say should be though, because writing is whatever it is for you,
it's
but
an opportunity, right? Like what you're
it's like an
saying is the
opportunity to
opportunity is
express.
there
Yeah.
to really let it out. Would you like me to read you like where I
Yes,
started it? And I'll show you
please.
how emotive they became. All
Yes.
right, so this is how they would look on the wall in England. This is a black and white photo. Many of them are in color, but so this is one of the first three or four. And I told you I was in a feisty mode.
Love it.
And my hair was platinum at that time.
Okay.
So here's the poem, very short. Blonde hair, face fair, healing bitch, dark witch, don't care. I'm
Oh,
her.
love that.
Like Leslie, but it had come out, it was this voice, right? And
Bit
so
dark witch. I love it.
it kind of stayed in that mode. But then what I really needed was to heal a lot of the stuff that had shifted in my life. And
Right.
so like there's a color photo you can see more, and you can see all the beach chalk. So this one was really like the turning point where it was like my muse was helping me to go deep, as you were saying.
Yeah.
So I called it Crashing Poetry, but they never had a title. I am here to hear the crashing poetry of the waves, to see the soaring of seagulls, to raise my wings of fire, to rise again and again, to witness from new heights the beauty of it all.
I love that. Okay, yeah, I like you. That's definitely different from the first one. Very,
Mhm.
I
Right, right. But I really was in this like so much had shifted in my life that it was like all I could do was experiment with feisty at first. Yeah,
right, and that's fair because I feel like, it is. It's an articulation of where we're willing to go within ourselves, I feel, and
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Because even the like blonde hair face fair, which is like, mm, you know, I love the rhyme, but the dark bitch healing witch. It's
I
like I
love that part.
knew I had it in me, right? And I wasn't thinking of those as pejorative terms, but as powerful woman.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes. No, and it's true because it's like it's almost like that was an invitation for you. It was like, hello, you
yeah.
you feisty healing witch.
right, let's see where we can go. And then suddenly, like, they really shifted.
I went down that rabbit hole hard.
you, you went down that rabbit hole hard too.
You did. I mean,
I did.
but
Oh,
yeah, I did too in my own. My poems started out really just dramatically emotional, though. I was like, okay, well, here's a way to channel all of the feelings I feel about. I started with love poems. I don't even know. I don't even think if you paid me right now, I could write you a love poem at this moment because my heart is cold and dead inside at the moment, but it's not. It's just sleeping. So, but
you're building some poems, I could tell.
I mean, I have like this like collection. I keep saying, I've been saying for the last year and a half, like I'm gonna publish this, but it just takes a lot of work to publish it, and I don't even want to look at them anymore. That is just like dark, gut-wrenching. Somebody sliced my heart into pieces like the world did, and I'm just like, that's so raw. I don't want to publish that, but like eventually I will. But like, then there's levels, but that really is an articulation of whatever you're going through. But I think it is like such a vulnerable thing, especially poetry, because it's so like, whimsical almost, like I can write about my life in like more factual prosy tense and it doesn't really hit me in the feels. Like poetry, I feel like just cuts you with a goddamn knife regardless. It's so emotionally sensitive.
It's so direct. The words are simplified. It's not lengthy description. It's like, here it is. Here's the thing.
Like a gut punch or like, a feeling of love flutter, whatever it is. It's like, it's hard, it's not, we're not softly easing into something. It's just,
Yeah. Do you want to hear another one?
Please.
Okay. I've got several that I lined up that I wanted to read to you.
Perfect.
So this one was really inspired by my godmother, who sort of said, everything will come back. Things will regenerate in your life. And I was like, yeah, sure. It just felt like everything had fallen apart, right? So I called it Sacred Ground. Here I hear, I just want to say, because I heard the poems, a lot of times the way I could access the lines was to say that, here I hear. So this one again says, here I hear on shifting sand, writing with evidence of loss of land. None is lost. It all comes round. Stay attuned to your just heart, guiding you round again to sacred ground.
I love that.
Again, a pivot and a deepening for me.
Yeah, it's like an invitation to you to tap into your heart, to ground yourself.
And to know that it was real, all my good heart was there despite all the stuff that I had gone through. It had been really quite a traumatic set of years of losses and changes. And I think the feisty was how I was dealing with that. And then once
that was like your outward, like, which is what I'm doing to the world right now. 100%. Yeah. And then, it's like, deeper, go deeper. Yeah, it's like your muse literally came to you.
Yeah.
To heal. Like, come on, let's go.
Exactly. And it's just been amazing. So I'm gonna go to Berkeley, a fence poem. And you can tell I like homonyms, the same sounding words with different meanings. Okay, it's called Right to Right. Right to right the ship. You won't stumble, won't slip back to that darkness which held you in its grip. You were there in my care just long enough to repair and return to the fullness, the goodness of your dear heart.
Beautiful.
Yeah, they touch me and I go, thank you. Because the thing is that I'm writing. I don't know if you have these moments where you're writing and it's like, I don't know what's coming. And I'm just.
No, it's like a fever dream, I say. It's like a fucking fever dream.
Yeah. And then I'm like, wow, thank you. Thank you to the muse. Thank you for that echo. And then when people say, wow, that really touched me, it's really special because I thought I was sort of embarrassed and I was glad the fence was kind of hidden and that the poems would wash off in England. But it turned out that nothing was too hidden. But a friend of mine said, what is most deep for us is also universal. Right. And so it really encouraged me to just own the poetry and just be like, okay, my moments of, just terrible pain or darkness or uncertainty, those are really common. Those are really familiar for everyone.
Yeah, they're so relatable. And I mean, this is what I tell myself too with the poems that I feel like I should publish eventually, like that, because it is. It's like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like when we're going through that, it's such a personal space. It's so vulnerable, it's so raw that it's like we kind of need to be
Yes.
in our like cocoon of self to like deal with that. And then
Right.
like showing that kind of, you're like, oh, but I'm not that person anymore. I've overcome it. Like I don't want to shed light on that anymore for myself. But it's like, no, because it's valid and like 90% of the world is fucked in dealing with all this
Yeah.
stuff. And it is. We're all looking for something to relate to. I always say it like when people are like, what's your artistic inspiration? I'm like, I don't know. It's a loaded question, but I do find myself always drawn to darker things like, you know, like books about desperation and despair and like the worst time in someone's life. I don't even want to read the one where you're like, you've won already. I want to read like the journey
Yeah.
through the mud to get there because it's so relatable. And I feel like so many
Right.
people,
It
yeah,
inspires me. And like I've come to have a philosophy that all the challenges are really there so that I grow as a
exactly,
person, and
100%.
that they're I think a big part of my assignment in life is forgiveness and is healing within my family, within the generations of my
100%.
family. And I wouldn't get there if I stayed in the la fluffy, right? And I wouldn't get there if I stayed in the angry also.
No, you
But the
have
angry
to,
is really important. And the
yeah.
despair, I can't get there if I stay in the despair. I have to go through the whole process, which kind of
It's like the
is a way.
grieving process or whatever, the five state, but it's not. It's like so many stages and it's non-linear, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, it is. I've been reading about that. And because I started thinking like, well, this poetry and my art have really helped me with the grief that I've gone through in my life. And so like, do you want to see something really personal? I
Cool.
realized that I needed to create an icon. I'm really interested in icons because they're a place in Eastern Orthodox religion. They're supposed to be the place where that spirit looks through and can bless you, and you can connect with Archangel Michael or
Okay.
with Mary or
Right.
whoever. And so I suddenly realized that I kind of needed that sort of a sacred place for my mother because she passed in a very difficult way, and I wasn't in touch with her, and that was really rough. Um, so I created this icon for her, and I'm going to see if I can get it. So that is an icon to my mother. It's her college photograph and a
Oh, she's
poem I wrote
beautiful.
to her, which is actually what someone put onto Instagram that I found today. That poem I put onto the fence, but I put it there. And what that does with the symbolism of my relationship with my mother, with the photograph of my mother and the poem to her, is it connects me to her in a way that has wrapped up the grief in a peaceful way. Like I can, I can find my mother there. I can say good morning, mom. I can, it's not like she's disparate and constantly hovering in my life,
Yeah, it
but
helps you keep that connection
it
like
does, and it
grounded
has.
in this reality. Oh my.
Yeah, yeah, and it helps me to honor her, and that creating that was so very healing to me, so special to me. And so actually I've started teaching that as a class called Shadow Canvas, where I teach people to process their grief or loss. So one of my students, her father had killed himself, and she didn't get to have closure with him. We did a whole process around her dad where she used a photograph, she used symbols, she used writing. And then another one of my students actually was processing significant loss in her own life, where she was at a pinnacle in her life. She was married, she was seeking children through artificial IVF, and she had a business, and she was an actor. And then she had huge loss, and so the connection to that part of herself really disappeared. So we were able to process those things in such a magical way. Like this class, I wasn't sure it would work for other people, but they were able to really connect with that part of self or that parent, come to peace, and also really open up their intuition. And it was
Powerful.
amazing. It was so much fun. I was teaching them how to find their muse through this. So I'm going to be offering the class again in late September and continually offering it because it is
And it's just
transformative.
an in-person class, correct?
It's actually on Zoom. I've had
Okay.
students from Europe as well as here in California.
Beautiful. Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. We love
Yeah.
an internationally based anything that we can reach all the people. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I think that that's so important, and that's one of the most amazing things about Zoom not being proximal, right? Like where I had that issue in England and my clients dropped me. Now I think people realize like, wow, it's amazing. I can actually work with a student who's in Germany, and it's so much fun because she's going to the German art store and telling me what it was like to like choose this thing, and then she says it's an in German, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know what that is, but
Of
here
course.
we go, and it's like I'm really using what the gifts of the muse, of the poetry muse, to move forward and really share that out, because I feel like one of my callings is to like help people process grief, because when you lose a whole lot, and it feels like your whole life is gone, you feel like, do you know that thing of the doldrums where there's the northern oceans and the southern oceans, and then there's this still place where the oceans come together around the equator, and so getting out of that doldrums is really really challenging, because it's almost like you're going over breakers into the next ocean, and there needs to be momentum, and I find that the shadow canvas process is huge. So and the other thing I'm going to do is something called soul canvas, which is a celebration. Because sometimes, like when you wrote your book, were you able to totally celebrate that you put your book together?
I never have. I still don't. I pass it off as it's literally nothing. And I've done
But
it twice.
it would be so much fun to like have a photograph of your book and of you, and then one of your poems in there as it like
Exciting. I literally love that because I feel like I've done things, I don't give myself any credit for fucking anything I've done. I've done so many things, but it's just
right.
like, right now I'm like, because I've started so many things and started over and just like can't figure out who I feel like being in this moment, which sounds like I'm an actress. I'm probably the world's best actress because I literally put on a show of who I feel like being, like for myself, like not even for other people. I'm like, who do I want to be today? There's so many possibilities that like I've never sat back and actually been like, wow, you've done so much. I'm more focused on like,
Right.
wow, you're doing nothing right now because you're in the
Yeah.
you're in like the in-between stage of like what you did before and what you're doing next. And like, yeah, I think
Right.
for me that would be really great to actually give myself some credit for like doing a bunch of cool shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, no, I created a soul canvas after I had been separate from my father for many years, for decades.
Hmm.
And I was able to recreate a relationship with him.
Oh wow.
It took a lot of courage, because the relationship was very rough, but I also loved him. I think we always love our parents under
You and
whatever.
I are like so like eerily similar in so many
Isn't it,
ways.
huh?
Like it's really freaking me out. Like everything you say, I'm just like, all right,
Oh,
yep.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
Same with
Um,
me and my dad. I don't know if we'll ever like get that back,
yeah,
but we do.
yeah.
We always love our parents, but
Right. And they're always present. That's the thing. And that I sort of realized, it's like whether I was in touch or not in touch, I was wrestling with them, hearing them, responding to them all day long
yeah.
anyway, or, very frequently. And so when I was able to recreate a relationship with my dad, I considered that like one of the triumphs of my life, because in
That
so
is
many circumstances,
fine.
people would never have gone back to him. But because my mother died, I realized that I needed to be able to share my love and share my thanks, because ultimately, an apology from someone will never heal me.
Right.
I have to do that myself. But the thing that really is valuable is connecting in love to these really significant people to me. And so I've done a lot of that sort of thing, but I made a champion piece. I made a soul canvas about my dad. I have a picture of him when he was in the Navy in his 20s, and then a story I wrote about him about, once I was willing to open up to him, and this happened with my mom too. Once I was willing to open up to the fact that there really was love there, huge parts of my life came back to me, beautiful connection moments. Because yes, the hard stuff was there, but the beautiful stuff was there. And that's the stuff I want to own. I learn what I can from the hard stuff.
Right.
But
You want,
owning,
yeah.
walking through the forest with my dad, and seeing sun streaming through the pines, and his stopping wordlessly and just going, It was like this experience of the divine together that we had when I was a teenager.
Beautiful.
And it was just incredible. So I put that onto the canvas, and I think, you wrote your book, you put it together, you got it bound, you got it on Amazon, and celebrating all the courage that each of those steps took, I think it would be amazing. So that's why I want to teach the soul canvas as well, because we don't just lose, we do champion things. And as you said, it's like almost hard to beat it onto the necklace of who we are. I
Oh
did
yeah.
this, I did
Yeah,
that.
it is. I know, and like I don't know. I don't know that, I do recognize, like I was having this thought today in the car while I was driving. I do recognize that some people, or maybe it was last night, I was just thinking about, I don't know, I met up with someone I hadn't seen in a long time from my past, and they had done something wrong to me like 15 years ago, and I remember them asking me like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're not upset about that." I'm like, "How could I be upset about that? I don't even know who I was then. I've been 2,000 billion people since then. For me to be
Mm,
upset is silly." And then it just like kind of put me down this rabbit hole of like, wait, but some people stay who they are the whole time. And like, you know what I mean? And don't and like I feel like I need to slow myself down sometimes because I do it a little too fast. Like I will grow out of something. I grow out of things so fast that like I grow out of things that are meant to stay in my life, and then to the detriment of myself, I have to go retrieve them because I've shoved them to the side. And I'm like, oh shit, actually that was really valid. And and I think I did that with like my poetry and my writing. I was like, okay, that's done. And
mm,
I don't resonate with this like undying love anymore, probably because love has never been kind to me fair. So I put that in a box and it's like that's
yet.
no longer a part.
Not been kind
Right.
yet.
Not yet. Yeah, it will happen. But and so I put that in a box and then it's like shit, I want that back now. So now I'm like, okay, and I had that revelation last night. I was like, I actually really miss that part of myself and I'd really like that to come back because
It's very essential. It's the heart speaking, the soul speaking, right?
it's like I ripped my heart out of my chest and I was like, well, fuck you. I'm drowning you in the ocean now. I put it on paper and it's done. Like,
Yeah.
no, Layla, that's not how things work. So, yes, I think.
Oh, but you're lucky that you know that you have that muse and that you can go back to her. You're right, right? You know you
I
have
need
that
her back.
inspiration.
I need her back. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
calling her back in. I'm gonna allow her to melt this icy. There's actually a poem in there about that, about melting your icy fucking heart. So maybe I should go read that.
Hmm. And shout it out the window or something.
I'm melting this icy fucking heart.
Maybe you should read it onto Instagram
Probably should.
or TikTok or something.
Yeah, I used to see. That's another thing. I used to read my poems out loud. I should probably get back to it. But see what I mean? There's a balance between never getting over things and then like, tossing things aside so quickly that you don't celebrate them, that you don't acknowledge them, that you're just like,
Right.
ciao.
That's the process of growing in our lives. I
Yeah.
mean, the number of things that I chucked out. It's
Oh my
like,
God.
I wish I hadn't, but
You
the
can get
essential,
them back though. I mean,
yes, that's the thing. The
not
essential things
physical
come
things,
back.
but yeah, like,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
everything, life really is full circle. Anything you've discarded, because sometimes we discard it like because we need to. Like sometimes we have to get rid of parts of ourselves to survive other parts of ourselves because we're
Mhm.
still in that like cocoon of going through a lot of trauma or whatever. Or, different things are relevant in different times. Like sometimes I have to pull out my business bitch side just to like get stuff done in this world, but that's not all we are. Like we have heart, we have soul, we have brain, we have logic. Like, there's just so many parts of ourselves. But yes, and I feel like every part that you're not meant to lose does like come back to you though. When
Yeah.
when you can have it, when you're ready to accept yourself for all of your pieces and can actually put those together, but that comes with learning and growth of how to manage all of those things, I guess.
Yeah. And you have a lot of gifts. And so we have to figure out like who we are. And a lot of time, I mean, I think that we are similar because I have a business side too. And I have a family and I have my art, and which is poetry and visual art. It's like sometimes I just feel like it's too much, but the
100%
opportunity is to
understand.
figure out how to weave it all together in a way that allows each to function
Yes.
to some level of fullness, right? And
That's my biggest struggle in life right now, like at this present moment. So 100%, yes, I like the too much, but it's not too much. It's all beautiful and it can
right,
be. I don't know.
Right.
You're here to tell me it can be interwoven because I actually can't say that
Well,
because
I'm learning it. I really am learning it. I've been
Yarch.
doing consulting work in health policy. That's the kind of thing that took me on the Fulbright, the business side of me.
Yeah.
But I also like run up to the fence and I'm like, I've got to write a poem. And I'm working on this thing. I don't know if you ever heard of this thing, ekphrastic poetry, which is poems that are inspired by art. So I was at the UC Berkeley Poetry Club, and they were like, "We're going to go to the museum and write ekphrastic poetry about the art we see." And I was like, "Ooh, what's that word?"
Love
So what
that.
I'm doing now is I'm creating pieces that are my own art with my own poetry on them, so that my poems get out in a new way. And yeah, so I couldn't really show you very well on my phone, but I've done some. I've done two in this nascent series of ekphrastic poetry because I really want to get it out. But I think I'm digressing on the idea that like it really is hard to interweave the things, right? And
It
to
really
like
is. I mean, yeah, we're both learning and struggling. I'm not going to say struggle. We're both learning how to do that because
yeah,
it's difficult. Like, I paint, I write, I have a podcast, I'm super into fashion, I travel, I'm
yeah,
super into cooking and like all these things. They're all like creative things, but it's like
mhm,
I'm also really into helping people. So I started a life coaching business last year and
right.
I refused to post to it anymore. I'm like, fuck how? Like, not that I want to lose that. Like, I invested a lot of energy into it, but then I was like, but what about the right? Like, there's got to be something that intertwines all of them together so I don't have 17 different Instagram accounts because each one feels like it's not the full part of me, I guess. So it's like,
Hmm.
except for
Hmm.
my podcast, this is the only thing I got that I say that it's like, this is me. This you
Right.
got it. But like everything else is like, I want them all to be integrated in whatever I do, but they all feel like separate entities. And so right now I'm just like, until I figure out how to make them all one entity, I don't even really want to put any like attention into like
Hmm.
like continuing them. You know what I mean? Because it's like I don't want to spread myself thin between all these things that I love. I want them all to exist in harmony together in a way that makes
Right.
sense. I haven't figured that out yet. So
I totally hear you. I think we're in the same boat. It's like, thank you for all these gifts, and like,
thank you.
how
But
do I
what the
manage
fuck do
it?
I do with that?
Because some people seem so consistent. They've got this little thing and they just do it. They've got their stick, right? And I'm
They
like,
got
I
their
don't
shtick. Like,
know.
you're a full-time musician. You're a full-time artist. You're like, what about us people? Like,
Right.
what do we do?
It's a really like amazing thing to be able to do a lot of things. Like one, my older daughter is actually um, a really powerful artist, and she's in medical school. And both my daughters are very creative. The younger
Okay.
one is did physics undergraduate, and I'm like, really? But I have art from her when she was in kindergarten. She
Oh,
was really good. I mean, people are like, I couldn't do that, when they see the pictures. So um, there are many of us who ride both sides of the brain, and I think that's one of the things that comes to me is like when you're coaching, you're probably being intuitive, but the
100%. Yeah.
structuring of the business is definitely one side of the brain, and then the creative is the other. And so the shifting back and forth, like when I consult on writing a federal grant for the state of Maine in health, um, then I'm like, my brain feels all stuck in that one side, and I'm like, I can't even hear a poem. I can't even hear a poem, and I
Right.
can't paint. But the ideal for me is to be able to find that dance.
Yes, I mean, me
Yeah,
too. It's like right now, I mean, I'm lost almost all of my creative side. Not lost, but it's been sleeping,
yeah,
survival mode, making
right.
weird decisions on where I live. And right now, I'm like moving back to California in March. So
Oh,
right now,
wow.
my whole brain is hustle, make money, make more money because you know what? I don't know what I'm gonna do when I get back there. No idea,
Hmm.
not one. So
Right.
like but that, there has to be a balance between that because then I get done doing that stuff and I'm so unfulfilled. And I'm like, wait, creativity, hello, can you come back to me? Because I do actually have all these hours in the day still right now.
Hmm.
And I know that my main focus is get the
Hmm.
fuck out, go back home. But, there has to be that balance between.
Yeah. I have one friend who's been talking to me a lot about like really scheduling. So using that logical part of the brain to schedule in, okay, you're going to do art. But I'm like, I
I
don't
don't think
know
that you
if it
can't
works that
schedule.
way.
That's what people tell me all the time. You can't schedule creativity though. You just have to be in the receptive mode.
Yeah.
It takes a mindset completely. It's not just like, okay, well, I worked for 7 hours and now I'm going to write. Like, no, your brain has to be in the flow. You have to be
Yeah.
flowing. Like, maybe
Right.
go take a walk on the beach. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I take a walk and then I better
Yeah.
have my phone on me because I'm going to be voice to texting memos. But also
Yeah.
more than that, it's a state of mind. You have to
Mm.
be like flowing and able to receive. You have to be receptive.
Yeah.
You have to be not logical at all.
Exactly, because your brain has to get out of the way if the art and poetry are going to come. Because
Right.
it's like, you want me to do what? And I'm like creating this angel on a piece of wood, and I'm like, oh yeah, the grain is great here. But it took me days after finishing writing the grant application to be able to look at the wood. And a lot of my paintings now, they pop out of the canvas at me. They're like the poetry. They're like, they just go, it's got to be this, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. But so how do you get like sequential hours of that and keep
I,
the practical
I
going? That's the
know.
dynamic.
When I was a full-time writer, like somebody was paying my rent and bills. So like I didn't have to worry about a goddamn thing. And all I did was and create all day. And I was creating so much that like it's scary. If you look at my Google Drive, I'm intimidated. I am fucking intimidated by the amount of work that I pumped out in 3 years of my life. But I had
Right.
no obligation. I had no responsibility to anything. I mean, my home was gorgeous. I was in Marin. I had everything taken care of. I had a cat and she was happy too, and her bills were paid too. And I
Yeah.
didn't have to fucking worry about it. So it's like it completely eliminated the need to go out and make the money and do
Mm-hmm.
the responsible. It was just physically like just sit and write. And of course, there were days where I was like, well, fuck creativity. I'm not, but it just like eliminating that side of my life just made all the difference. It was like I'm flowing constantly. I can't shut
Yeah.
the writing off. I would take a shower and be like, shh,
Wow. What
you
was your
know,
step? Were you on a grant? Were you like, what was going on?
no, just some nice man decided to sponsor my life because he was
Yeah.
lonely and
Sugar,
wanted to
the
have a
sugar
friend.
daddy mute that like, what do you call it?
It's like
Artist?
my platonic sugar daddy. People are like, there's no way you didn't have sex with that man. I'm like, I swear to God, that was my condition. He asked me to marry him the first week we met. I said, no, I am
Mm-hmm.
lost. I am broke and I need a motherfucking friend. And he was like, and I need a motherfucking friend. And I was like, cool. So we moved in together and it worked for like 5 years. It
Oh,
was
that's amazing.
fucking great. And it wasn't supposed to go that way. It just kind of went that way. Of course, I like
Right.
had intended to give him money, but then like the pandemic hit and like he just kept taking me on travel before the pandemic. So it was just like it just kind of happened and it just kind of kept going. And
Wow.
he really just allowed me to, and I had jobs and like gigs. I did some Uber here and there, but I didn't like have the pressure and we dog
Yeah.
sat and stuff. I would bring dogs to the house, but it was a really beautiful situation. And I'm very lucky to have had him, but he was just so
Yeah.
accepting of me. And I don't think I've ever had anybody in my life be that accepting of me. And like, I'd be like, this week, I'd be like, I want to be a musician. He taught me how to play the man. He would break down, he would transcribe music for me to play jazz on the mandolin. He was just so fucking supportive. And I'd be like, all right, well, now I'm an author. And he'd be like, yes, you are. Like,
Wow.
so much support, like so much love. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go get my real estate license and do this and dip out. And then, I was like, fuck that, I'm gonna move to France. And I don't know. I left, but yeah.
Well, I hope you'll get in touch with him because that sounds like a special thing.
We're still really good friends, but I told him, I was like, the day I leave, you're gonna fall in love because I'm out. And I was like, and subconsciously, I'm blocking you from ever having a girlfriend because what the fuck is your girlfriend gonna think about this 28-year-old girl who is, you know what I mean? So I was like,
Yeah.
we had like, and me too. I was like, I can never fall in love or like live my life fully while we're together. So like, there was definitely that awareness within me. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, so now, of course, I wasn't lying. Like the week I moved out, he like fell in love and had a girlfriend. So I could never go live with him again. But we're still really good friends. I went out I flew out to see him for my birthday, and we went out to dinner and stuff. So
That's so great. See, you don't throw out all the good stuff.
no, I'm learning to keep the good stuff, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's amazing. It's
yeah.
an amazing journey.
Weird stories of my life. I've lived a lot of lives.
Well, you were meant to have that time. In my time in England, once I lost that work, Christmas-ish, but there was still another period of time. I had a few things that were sending money, and so I actually got to be an artist in England and write poetry and create these different portraits that I was creating, these icons that I was creating. And
I'm so sorry. The dogs howling are just too. Can you hear
oh,
this?
there you go. I heard it. So cute. Not that much. No, it's fine. But it sounds like a really precious period of
Yeah.
years to string together and a body of work that was really important.
It's so valuable to be able to have that time, and I hope both of us get more of that time and figure
Yeah.
it out. I mean, I know that if I don't figure out how to balance the time, I will go completely and utterly mad and lose
Right.
the semblance of myself. So it's a work in progress, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope.
Well, I've been learning with various teachers, and my intention is to continue to consult for a while and then to really launch the art in such a way that I can sustain myself there.
I mean,
That's
yeah,
that's
that's
what I'm looking for, because
always been my
that feels
goal.
like the deep call, right? Like the external world is always saying you got to be efficient and businesslike and all that, but it's
You don't. I don't. I'm not buying it.
not buying it. Good.
But I'm with you. I mean, it's just how to, and I mean, that's always been my ultimate goal as well, to have just my creativity sustain myself. And I just think that, I mean, we have to really just have like faith and trust in the process. And
Yeah.
I think that I'm at a place soon where I can actually do that, like have faith, like, and get it done. I mean,
Yeah.
my whole plan is to move to California, pay my rent for a year, and just fucking ride it out and see what the fuck I make of it. Like up front,
Cool.
just like whatever. I'm not worrying. I'm gonna go move to Santa Monica. Why not? I don't know why. It's just like
Oh,
we're
wow.
I
Santa
don't
Monica.
so random. I'm like such a Bay Area baby. I tell everyone that, but I'm like, you know what? I feel like I need to be in Santa Monica right now, so I'm gonna go do that. Go put a year down rent, and then just literally create as much as I can.
It's a
And
very
like,
artistic center. Yeah, and you got
yeah,
the beach for inspiration. It can be kind of rough, so I guess there's texture to it. It can also
Mhm.
have some really kind of chic stuff, and I think
Yeah.
LA is very creative. I think, and it's not hot there because you've got the sea, right?
And
You're
it's
right in
not cold.
the-
I don't have the fucking Bay Area fog anymore.
I know we're in
I look
summer
every day,
now.
I'm like, it's a nice 70-ish degrees every single day here. I'm like, wait, that's like my ideal temperature. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah,
Well,
that's,
the thing you have to do when you live in Santa Monica is you got to have some rollerblades, rent them or buy them, and
I
go
have
to the strand
still, like
up
my dream
and
life.
down. It is so amazing. I mean, you can go all the way up to Malibu and
I
down
love
to
Malibu so much.
Venice, and it's so beautiful. It's like those beaches there are so broad. There's the Strand,
You
which
got
is
me in my
wider
feelings.
than 3 sidewalks, and then you've got volleyball nets, and then you just have to trudge and trudge and trudge, and finally you're like, maybe I can put my towel down here because the water.
Yes,
It's so
yeah. I
amazing.
mean, I've spent so much time in Malibu, so like but so you just made me cry a little bit. I'm so excited.
You're doing the right thing. That's it. See those tears, that feeling of chills,
I'm
the
just
movement.
so
That's like,
happy.
yeah.
It's been a very hard 3 years not knowing what the fuck was supposed to be doing, but
Wow. What part of the country are you in?
right now I came back from Europe very strung out, fucking after drinking too much and having my heart ripped apart and people manipulating me and abusing me for a year. So I came back to my family's in Rhode Island, and then I was like,
Nice.
well, I don't want to live with you, so I rented an apartment in upstate New York, and I
That's
haven't
where I'm
been there
from.
in a month and a half. What part?
Utica is the biggest
Okay.
city right there. Yeah.
I'm like I'm in Ballston Spa, but like I
Oh, yeah.
honestly haven't been in my apartment in like a month and a half, so I have to go like move out right now, and so I'm gonna be staying with my family in Rhode Island until I move back to California.
Nice. Very cool. Oh, well, welcome back to California. When you get here, let me know. And this was so much fun.
It
I
was
don't know if
so
you've
much
got
fun.
but this is really amazing.
Yeah, no, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your poems and your artistry. And I will obviously have all your links for everybody to buy your book. And one more thing before you go, you're working on memoir?
I've got a memoir. I'm actually going into a weekend long writing workshop right now. It's called The Myth of the Bad Mother, working title. It's about rediscovering my mother and the lineage of breaks in the mother-daughter relationships in my family that started with my great-grandmother.
That is so fucking interesting.
Yeah.
I need I need to hear about this more.
Yes. Okay. I'll let you know more. And I should send you a link for Shadow Canvas too, because I really want people to join that healing class.
I would love to join that. I know I'm holding on. I don't like to admit it, but like my dreams are telling me otherwise. I am holding on to quite a lot of ouchy situations in my life that I've just kind of been like, all right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And once we take like the top ones off, we start to be able to put the other ones into place.
Yeah. I mean, my brain has cut them off and dealt with them, but I don't think my heart has not in any.
Right.
That's why I'm spicy.
Yeah. Deciding intellectually is very different than heart being at peace.
I have decided I can talk about these traumatic events in my life with absolute indifference, like the coldest, most factual bitch you've ever met in your life. And like, yes, that happened. And then people will be like, and how do you feel about this? Nothing. But like I know that's not true. I know I've just buried it so deep for the sanctity of keeping on at this point.
Yeah.
So I'd love to join that myself. But yeah, and I'll share it with all my guests. And thank you so much. Do you have any parting words for our audience here?
Oh, I think find your muse. It's just the most exciting thing in the world is to connect in and hear those special words that are there for you and to create the things that you're, that are coming through you. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Leslie.
Thank you for your time and invitation. Delightful to meet you.
You too. And thank you all for listening to The Layla Show. Ciao. The Layla Show.